Hello everybody. So sorry it's taking me so long to get this screencast done. We were having issues with the Camtasia on this computer, but I think we've got it figured out now. What I wanted to do quickly, so that I don't take up too much of your time, because I know your time is precious, especially during your planning hours and stuff. I just want to run through the handbook. I know I'm getting ready to go out and do my first visit of lessons next week, but I wanted to be sure that I've already gone through this with the students when we had them the first week during orientation week, but I wanted to be sure I went through it with you CTs as well. That way, if there's any questions or concerns, I can address those when I go see you next week, or we can email, Skype, or call each other to address some of the issues or questions you might have. Um, the students should give you a copy or electronic copy of the handbook, and if you don't have one or they are not able to get it to you, please let me know. I will make sure I email that to you. So let's see. They're taking 2 classes during this field-based period, at least 2 LVB classes. I believe they're also taking a families class that's done online. So the class that they are taking that I will be implementing with the lesson plans and going and doing observations is the field work and low vision and blindness, advanced clinical experience part 1 and part 2. So part 1 right now are for those who are doing their residential placement clinical experience, and then and the other half are doing their itinerant, and then part 2 would be they would be switching. Some of them will be going to Indiana. So in the meantime, let me go through this handbook really quickly. So we're going to skip down to page 3 of the handbook. And on page 3 of the handbook, I wanted to just point out what field-based participants' responsibilities are. And basically, they are to act and be treated as a teacher, arrive and leave the classroom at the same time required of their supervising teacher, with the above noted exceptions, which are above here, where it has description, field-based semester tentative schedule. Dress appropriately given the school environment, and call the cooperating teacher and university supervisor in case of an excused absence. Then we've got the prerequisite requirements. Their goals are here, and their roles and responsibilities. They are to learn and assist with daily procedures, such as attendance, room preparation, lunchroom, and playground supervision, prepare large print and braille materials and any other appropriate classroom materials, maintain and prepare educational displays, assist in determining appropriate materials and procuring them. So learning about how to procure items from the IIMC, those kinds of things are going to be really important for them as they move out of field-based and student teaching, and while they're in student teaching, because they will have their own caseload, so they're going to need to know how to do that. Participate in meetings and staffings, conferences, and the preparation of individual education programs whenever appropriate. So IEP meetings are really important for them to participate in if they have the opportunity. Observe students in their classroom and other non-academic subject or settings when appropriate. And then visit other classrooms, both special and general education, as appropriate, which I know is going to be difficult to do in a residential setting, but once they are in the itinerant setting, they should be able to fulfill that one with no problem. Teach an individual, group, or entire class from lessons prepared by the cooperating teacher. And also teach an individual, group, or entire class from lessons prepared by them. Your role as a cooperating teacher is to facilitate the ISU participant in completing the above responsibilities and other appropriate responsibilities within the classroom, provide opportunities to observe your teaching methods, schedule a weekly conference with the ISU participant for planning and evaluation, and in a little bit I'll show you some sample documents you can use to document your weekly conferences or meetings with them if you choose. They're not required, but sometimes it's a good idea to have some documentation that you guys meet, and that way the students have something to look back at, so to form their goals and work towards them during the week or the next week after you guys have discussed issues or goals that you would like to see implemented by the ISU student. Um, Also, as a CT, providing feedback regarding their activities that they're engaged in. Meet with me, the ISU University Supervisor, during scheduled visits to discuss the participants' progress. So those things we will be scheduling when I go and meet for to observe the lesson. If we have time right after the lesson, we can talk about the lesson itself and then make a schedule for, or I will send out an email to schedule the midterm conferences. But also at any time that you want to talk with me, I'm available. Just email or text, and I will set up a time to talk. Um, then, as soon as possible, the ISU participant should be made responsible for teaching an individual, small group, or subject area. The schedule may be increased at the discretion of the cooperating teacher and the ISU participant. Monitor and assist with the development of projects and instructional plans for appropriateness of content relative to the learners involved. Provide opportunities for the ISU participant to observe other special education and general ed setting meetings, like IEP meetings, low vision clinic, um, professional development, those types of things. And of course, assist in the preparation of professional development goals for the next placement, which will come towards the will come at midterm and then at the final. My role is to meet with you, the CT, and obtain the evaluation of the participant's performance, so the midterm and the final. Observe the participant in the classroom setting at least 3 times each placement and provide feedback of his or her performance. So I will go and do 2 in-person observations, and then there's a video observation that they will be submitting. Also, my responsibility is to check the status of instructional assignments and project and assist as necessary, and then meet with the ISU participant and cooperating teacher to give overall evaluation of performance and develop professional development goals. Okay. So let's see. Observations. This initial meeting will be conducted via teleconference or in person, which is what we're not doing ours via teleconference or in person. We're doing it via screencast, so I need to add that in there. But it all counts as an initial meeting, and then there are 3 scheduled observations that the teacher candidate will be completed by the university supervisor during each of the 2 field-based placements. And I've already, like I mentioned before, one of them will be via video lesson, and the other 2 will be face-to-face. Then the observations at each placement will be one of them, as it's a video lesson, will be followed by a teleconference. But also, what we could do, depending on the time frame that's available to us after the in-person observations, if there isn't time to meet directly after the lesson, then we can call and be teleconference the next morning or the next day during your planning time to discuss how the lesson went. Okay. And then university supervisors or other departmental faculty staff reserve the right to increase contact with the cooperating teachers as well as the teacher candidate whenever it may be determined necessary and or appropriate by any ISU employee. This increase in contact may include extra video lessons, in-person visit, teleconferences, or emails, depending on the particular situation. Okay. The video lesson requirements, I think the main thing is that the teacher candidates are not permitted to share the recorded video lesson with others besides the CT and the university supervisor. And we've talked about that, and of course they have to have permission to videotape the lesson, and which they're already doing for their TPA. So now the due dates for the video lessons and accompanying materials. I sent out an email addressing which when lessons are due and the due dates, and I believe everybody has received that that email. So I know the first lesson that they have to turn into me is due Thursday, September the 10th, I believe is the first one is due, and then the video lesson is due the 17th, and then the third lesson is due the 24th of September. So they're coming up pretty quickly. They've been out there for a couple weeks already, so they should be ready to go, writing their lessons, and already have been writing lessons and teaching for you. And so I'm sure, hopefully, everything's going okay. I haven't heard anything, so we'll take it from there. And so everybody knows the video dates, of course, referring to the syllabus schedule and the email that I sent out. Okay, so at the residential school placement, the role of the ISU student varies by placement. They should be prepared to take on the most appropriate role for their individual residential placement. In no instance should ISU students be working in the role of a classroom assistant or paraprofessional during their fieldwork. It is important that the ISU student has ongoing instruction responsibilities in their residential placement, even though the ISU student will not take over or maintain responsibility for the entire caseload during the residential placement. The CT, the university supervisor, and the ISU student will work together to determine the most appropriate role for the ISU student at their unique placement. Okay? So, we talked about that. Now, we can go to the syllabus, which is on page 29. But I actually updated the syllabus when I had them here. And the new syllabus is in ReggieNet, and they all know how to access that, but I just wanted to make sure that we pointed out a few things from the syllabus. So if we go down to, let's see, page, oops, it would be page 42 for you in the handbook. If you have the handbook with the syllabus within it. I have the syllabus separate from that. Okay, we talked about, the disposition indicators are not here. Okay, so let's go back to the handbook. Do that real quick. Okay, so we'll just go down to page 42. That's the syllabus for 351. Sorry. Okay, so we'll skip over the syllabus for a second and go to the disposition indicators, which is on page 42 of your handbook. The disposition indicators are extremely important so that we can monitor and document if any of our students or teacher candidates are not fulfilling the requirements that are indicated for being a proficient and I guess meaningful teacher. The disposition indicators here, the main at the very top talks about teacher candidates who display poor judgment or performance in one or more of these areas may not be recommended for certification or may receive a grade that reflects reservations regarding readiness for the profession. So here, under collaboration, what we're looking for is the ability to work together, especially in joint intellectual effort. So, if the student is fulfilling these, then we shouldn't have any problem. Same thing with honesty and integrity, the ability to demonstrate truthfulness and sincerity to oneself and to others, demonstrate moral excellence and trustworthiness. Respect, the ability to demonstrate consideration, honor, worth, and regard for oneself and others. Reverence for learning, feeling for profound awe and respect for learning. Emotional maturity, the ability to adjust to one's emotional state to a suitable level of intensity in order to remain engaged with one's surroundings. Reflection, the ability to review, analyze, and evaluate the success of past decisions in an effort to make better decisions in the future. Flexibility, the willingness to accept and adapt to change. Responsibility, the ability to act without guidance or superior authority and to demonstrate accountability and reliability. So here, I just want to point out a few things here. The main thing is submits assignments on time or follows procedures for extension. So submitting assignments on time, not only to me as the supervisor or Pam Duda as the instructor for their other course that they're taking in LVB, but also anything that you as the CT asked a student to do. If you ask a student to write lesson plans and submit them because they're going to be helping you teach the next week, and you give them a deadline that they need to submit those by, they need to follow those deadlines. And if that's not happening, then we need to have a conference, because that is a disposition. That's one of probably the most important dispositional indicators, especially for you being responsible for teaching students, and your CTs need to know what you're going to teach and have approved it, because these are still their students. Once you leave, they still have these students, and they need to make sure that they are kept on track while they are also helping you develop into an itinerant teacher or TVI. Okay, make sure that you prepare for classes, meetings, and group work. Manage your time effectively, completes assigned tasks from group activities within an acceptable time frame. Um, Prioritizes work based upon established goals, um, and take initiative to get materials and notes when you're absent from meetings or classes. Um, so make sure that you are fulfilling the responsibilities that your CTs are giving you out there, and CTs, if the students are not indicating or displaying any evidence of these disposition indicators, then we need to know. I need to know as a supervisor, and we need to get together and have a conference to document that, so that we may develop a plan to help our students get back on track, so that we can recommend them to move on into student teaching. Okay, moving to the next. Page 46. So the essential application approval process. So we know our students are going to need access to the files of the students they're teaching during field-based semester for lesson plans, projects, essential applications. It is the ISU students' responsibilities to obtain these files immediately upon beginning at their placements. They should work with their CT to make this happen. Let's see. Okay, and so when we're looking at for the EdTPA, we need to make sure that we all approve of the student and the type of lessons that they're going to be doing. So just understand that it may, some exchanges of emails may have to go back and forth. So it may, you know, it may take a couple of days to actually get through that process. But I don't anticipate it taking too long. The students are really good about contacting me, texting me or emailing me or calling me, and we usually can get that taken care of pretty quickly. So during their placements, they need to do an EdTPA, the Teacher Performance Assessment, which will be required in their first placement. So some of them are residential, some of them are itinerant. We're having them complete them during that first placement. They do need to do a functional vision assessment, an accommodation plan, graded instructional plans, and instructional plan reflections, which there are 3 of them required in the itinerant and of course and in the residential placement. And then there are weekly reflections. And then we have the learning media assessment has to also occur, graded instructional plans, 3 more of those during their other placement, whether it's residential or itinerant, and then their weekly reflections. Okay. Okay. So let's move on in the handbook. Page 71, which talks about the EdTPA. Okay, so as of September the 1st, 2015, passage of the EdTPA is a state of Illinois legal requirement for teacher education program completion and licensure. The cost of the assessment is $300. Additional charges are assessed if the teacher candidate does not pass the EdTPA on the initial attempt. So teacher candidates are solely responsible for the contents of their EdTPA portfolio and submitting their portfolio for scoring in a timely manner. Teacher candidates must pass the EdTPA in order to graduate from their teacher ed program at Illinois State University and be recommended for licensure in the state of Illinois. Okay, so the EdTPA manual is available on ReggieNet for the students. We went through it extensively for 3 days during their orientation week, so they are fully aware of what needs to be done. And I have also emailed the due dates in that last email with the dates of the lesson plans that are due, and then we split up the EdTPA. There are 3 tasks. We split them up, and their task 1 is due at a different date than task 2 and task 3. And then as they're submitting them, I will give them feedback for each task, and they are allowed to go in and uh, fix or adjust anything that needs to be adjusted based on the feedback they get. And that way, at the very end, when it is all due at one time on October 25th, they will have had a chance to correct the mistakes, update any items that need to be updated, and so then the process of grading it will be a lot faster, and they will get it back a lot quicker. Than I've ever had a chance to do before. So this is, it has been a blessing to have 3 days of solid EdTPA training for them on this, as before we really weren't allowed to do that. From what I was told, that students really had to kind of do this on their own. So, but I guess since it is now high stakes, they are allowing us to really get a little more involved and detailed in how to complete this EdTPA. So they have the manual. We've gone through it. The main thing is they're going to need consent from the student, as well as any of the other students in the class who might be in the video. They will be doing a 4 to 5 lesson learning segment to assess the student learning and analyze their teaching. So they will have to submit lesson plans, instructional materials, work samples, assessment data, commentary, addressing their planning, instruction, assessment, analysis. The TPA is modeled after the National Board Certified Teacher process. So it's a good thing that we are doing this, even though it's very cumbersome, but it's really showing that how well we can prepare our teachers to go out and affect student change. Okay, so we've gone through that. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, okay, what, page 72. Okay, so when selecting a learning segment for the TPA, candidates should work with their CTs and supervisors to identify a concept to teach as well as the corresponding standards. Decision on what to teach, much like any learning segment, should be driven by what students are expected to learn at a particular grade level, coupled with students' own particular developmental and academic learning needs. District guidelines, school focus, grade level expectation, and classroom curriculum maps and or pacing guides ought to be considered as well. Okay, and then we've got the duration of the project, 5 lessons of instruction and instructional data collection. In order to be approved for this, you've got the students need to submit pages 66 and 67 of the handbook, which is the TPA graphic organizer and overview. And I'm kind of going through that right now. So this will help them just kind of plan it out and map it out so that before they get started, they're not having to stop and you're going to stop and revamp things as you go along anyway, but at least if you have it written down, you've really thought about it, and it gives you a framework to go by. It's just like making an outline for a paper. It helps you focus and remain focused on what it is you need to do. Especially for the EdTPA, we don't have a lot of time, and the students don't have a lot of time to do it. So because they're going to have to go back in and edit and answer the commentary questions that are there, and so we want them to be as efficient and proficient as possible. So using the organizer will help them do that. So they need to make sure that those get turned into me, and if you would like to look at them as well before they turn them in, that's fine as well. As a CT, your input is extremely valuable to us, especially since you're out there with the students every day, and I'm only out there those 2 or 3 times, and most of my conversations will be happening with you in regards to how the students are teaching and how they're performing. Now, the lesson plans are a little bit different than what they've done in the past, because for EdTPA, they have to use a certain format, and because of that, we went over those 3 days about how to use that lesson plan format to get them to practice for next semester when they're actually going through and turning in their lessons for EdTPA for their licensing and credentialing. So I wanted them to have enough practice with it before they actually had to do it to turn in for their official scoring. So we've gone through that, and then one of the things they have to also do is this instructional plan reflection, which is on page 78. So that's something that's still the same as what they have done in the past. So the students should be familiar with this when they're looking at summarizing and analyzing student progress toward their learning objectives. So the students should be pretty familiar with this part, and if you as a CT want to look at it and help them figure these errors out, that would be wonderful. Now here they need, this helps with their analysis linked to their future plan to adjust their lessons. So here I have looked at my error types. What will I change or add to increase the student success? Why did they choose a different strategy? And after I adjust the next plan with a post-it note or a different color and provide date of the lesson on the adjustment. So these forms are just to help them think through and analyze how their student is learning, because on the EdTPA they have to do that extensively. So these forms are just to help them get through that an analytical process. So these are the pages for their reflections, and those are different from their post-observation lesson reflections. This reflection document is for their actual instructional plan reflections. But after I observe, then they have 2 days to turn in their reflections on the observation and the feedback that they received. So it can get kind of confusing because we have a lot of the same terminology used for the same terminology used for different types of projects that they have to turn in. Okay, so now to the midterm and final evaluation of teacher candidate attainment and performance standards. So here is the document that you will be using as a CT to assess the students for their midterm and the final. So if you're doing this on the computer, which I've emailed the students the electronic copies, and they're also on ReggieNet, so they can give you access to them or email them to you. And if you are doing them on the computer, just make sure that you highlight and color like if we're doing the midterm, make sure that this one is highlighted midterm with the candidate's name, your information here, service delivery model, any responsibilities, any additional comments for the midterm area. Okay. So then what we'll be doing here is this is all the midterm side. So you can go in and indicate for domain 1 if there's significant improvement needed, if the skills are emerging or proficient, or 5 or not 5. The last one would be like exceeds proficiency. So that's and if the student is showing that, great. So if you're going to do that, as you indicate, you can highlight with different colors. For the midterm, you might want to use like maybe green or yellow, and then for the final, you can use a different color so that you're using the same form. But on the midterm side here, you'll be, documenting your colors. Like yellow for midterm here on the significant improvement needed, emerging proficient, or exceeds, and then any of evidence or any comments you want to make, you will put here in the little midterm box. And then when it comes to the final, you can use the same document, or you can use a new document with using a different color and just indicating here that this document is the final document, and coming down here and marking, in a different color, significant improvement needed, emerging proficient, and then your evidence here, comments or evidence or anything that you want to indicate, you would put under final. And that way we have a clear delineation between the midterm information and the final information, and that I can use that to complete my documents, and then we can decide all together whether or not the student is ready to move on. Okay? And if you notice, additional professional responsibilities, lesson plans completed 2 days in advance, and there's a place for you to say yes or no, and do evidence or comments, make evidence or make comments regarding the evidence of that skill. Makes decisions independently, attends IEP meetings. So these are all additional information, and also additional documentation regarding dispositional characteristics that we look for in our students to move on. Okay. So now we have the observation reflection form. So after each of the 3 observation of both placements, this includes the video lesson observation. You got to complete this form. And this is for the student. The responses should be typed. They should provide detailed explanations of the response to each item. There is no space or word limit. Use as much space and as many words as you need to effectively reflect and describe your experience. So 1, they need to, what were the comments and suggestions made by you, your CT, and your university supervisor during the post-lesson observation conference? Was this new information for you, yes or no? And explain that. And then based on what was discussed during the post-lesson observation conference, what will you do going forward? So that needs to be done within 48 hours of the actual reflection. They also have a bi-weekly reflection journal. And so we actually changed the form for this bi-weekly reflection journal, and I've emailed that to the students. So they have the newer form that we are going to be using instead of the one that is in the actual handbook. Okay. Now they also have to do a resume to turn in, but I've suggested they do that after this semester, at the very end of the semester, so that way they can put in all of their experiences that they've had, so they have the most updated resume as they go into student teaching when they start looking for a job. So now the exit interview, which is on page 98, near the end of the semester, teacher candidates will have scheduled an exit interview with the university supervisor. They should arrive to the exit interview fully prepared to discuss each of the following items: a collection of works portfolio, which I don't believe the College of Education is requiring them to do that anymore. And if they are, the students know if they need to do that, and I will know by the end of the semester if that's still something that they're requiring them to do. They have to have a dispositional checklist or performance guidelines with all areas identified by P, proficient, E, emerging, or I, needing improvement. They need to have their goals for student teaching, 1 goal from each of the following areas: knowledge, performance, and disposition. It should be typed and submitted to the university supervisor at the start of the exit interview, and each goal should also have an identified matching related professional standard and brief explanation of a plan for development. They need to have their blue documentation forms and their full range of placement form, which will be placed in their portfolio, and they should have 2, 1 for practicum and 1 for field base, and that's a form that I have that I will be completing with them. The forms that I need to have completed is the student readiness for student teaching. And the grades will not be documented until all assignments are completed and graded. And then the goals for student teaching, one goal from each of the following areas: their knowledge, performance, and disposition. So I will be putting that onto the goal sheet. Okay, so performance assessments. So these are the forms that I was indicating to you that are some of them. Well, the evaluation of instructional practices scoring rubrics, which is on pages 82 to 89. That's something that we use for midterm and final. But the optional forms are tentative teacher candidate assumption of teacher responsibility schedule. The form is provided to the teacher candidate to aid in planning with the CT. The candidate observation form is provided for use in providing feedback to the teacher candidate with whom the CT is working. And then also the feedback form is which is provided for use in providing feedback to the teacher candidate with whom the CT is also working. So this one's, something that you can use. You don't have to use it, as it says here, it's optional. But if you want to use it to help guide your weekly meetings, um, please feel free to do that. And also, if you do that, then you can keep a copy and make sure that the student gets a copy so that they can keep that for their records. And then there's this one here, which I kind of like because it aligns with the dispositional indicators, and I really think that it will help our students keep on track, especially if they're having issues with any of these dispositional areas. And so this might be one that you might want to look at and maybe consider implementing, so that the student gets regular feedback every week, so that they know they're on track. And then there's just a feedback form if you're observing the student teaching a lesson for you. Here's an area where you can indicate what subject or activity they're doing, what the strength, what their weaknesses are, and any suggestions that you may have to help them improve. The forms that I will use, the evaluation of instructional practice summary. So basically, you guys as CTs will be completing your rubrics, and then we'll discuss, and you'll have discussed that prior to the second or third and fourth observations. Cooperating teachers share the rubrics with the university supervisor during the visit, and at that time, the ratings for each of the 5 categories are determined and recorded on the summary by the university supervisor. The university supervisor and CT, if the schedule permits, review the evaluation with the teacher candidate. Final recommendations and reactions are added to the evaluation of instructional practice summary by the supervisor. So basically, the CTs will complete the midterm document, the one that's on pages 82 to 89. Discuss that with the student, and then will send that to me, and then I will use that information to complete my document, and then we will have a phone conference to discuss both my document and the CT's document, the midterm, and the same procedure for the final. Observation and conference record for teacher candidates is something that I complete when I go and I do my observations. Okay, and then the student gets a copy, I get a copy, and I believe the CT gets a copy. Then a student readiness for teaching document. That's the one that I fill out at the very end. And here we just indicate what grade levels, what academic experience categories that the student had, the disabilities, service delivery. And then here I used our documentation from our midterm and our final to indicate proficiency, competency, emerging, or significant improvement needed in these areas. And then the knowledge rating, performance rating, and disposition rating will go here, and that would also go PE and I. And then I would recommend or not recommend the student on to student teaching. If there is a remediation plan needed, we indicate that. And then or student teaching plan, they can move on. And then goals for continued professional growth, I will add that either right underneath here or attach them, the goals that I need to put in for the knowledge, performance, and disposition. and then my name and the teacher candidate signature there. And then here is the observation and conference record that I will be completing and giving to the teacher candidate when I go and do the in-person observations and the video observation. And then here's this other form, the student readiness for student teaching, that the students need to um, complete, and then I will have my goals in here and their goals would be there. And that goes along with the document that I fill out for the midterm and the final. Based on what you all put on your documents, then I add I use that to guide my ratings here. Now there are some ratings that I have on mine that you don't have on yours, but for the most part they're very, very similar. They're all based on the Danielson framework. So I believe we've covered the handbook and the main areas that I wanted to be sure that you as the CTs are aware of. And that way, if you have any questions or comments, you can email me or refer back to this recording to re-review it or listen to it again to get some clarification. And like I said, I'm always available. The students have my cell number, and I believe I have it on the front page of the syllabus. I should. So, and my email as well. So anyway, I just wanted to go through this. Thank you so much for helping us with our teacher candidates. We could not do this without you. I really and truly appreciate your time and your effort in helping develop the next generation of TVIs. Again, please feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns you may have, and I look so forward to seeing you soon. Okay? Have a great day. Bye-bye.